It was just another Tuesday afternoon. Sunlight slanting through the trees, school backpacks still slung over shoulders, and the kind of quiet that only comes right after the final bell. A 14-year-old girl walked into her neighborhood bank, clutching a small envelope in her hand. Inside were 3 crisp bills, 2 20s and a $47 check from her grandmother for her birthday, carefully folded and tucked beneath a handwritten note that said, "For your future." She wasn't there to make a scene. She wasn't even supposed to be alone. Her mom had asked her to drop the money into their joint savings account as a small step toward learning responsibility. It was a simple errand, the kind many kids do without a second thought. But from the moment she stepped up to the counter, something felt off. The bank wasn't busy. A couple of people waited in line, one scrolling on their phone, another filling out a form at a nearby table. The air smelled faintly of coffee and paper. The girl smiled politely at the teller, a woman in her 40s with a name tag that read Linda, and slid the envelope and deposit slip across the counter. "Hi," she said, voice steady but soft. "I'd like to deposit this into account number 4827. Please." Linda glanced at her, then at the envelope, then back at her face, her eyes narrowing just slightly, like she was trying to solve a puzzle no one had presented. She didn't smile, didn't say hello, just picked up the envelope like it might be hiding something dangerous. "Where'd this money come from?" she asked, voice flat. The girl blinked. "My grandma gave it to me for my birthday." "And your grandma, she just handed you cash like this?" Linda asked, flipping open the envelope and counting the bills slowly as if expecting them to vanish. "Yes, ma'am," the girl replied, keeping her tone respectful. She'd been taught to be polite, especially with adults. Linda set the money down and crossed her arms. "Do you have ID?" The girl hesitated. "I'm 14. I don't have a driver's license." "Well, we can't process a deposit without proper identification," Linda said, not looking up. "But it's my mom's account," the girl explained gently. "I'm depositing into her account. She said it was okay." "That may be," Linda replied, finally meeting her eyes. "But bank policy requires verification for any deposit over $50, especially from someone who isn't the account holder." The girl frowned. "But I've done this before. Last year I deposited birthday money here, and they didn't ask for ID." Linda's expression didn't change. "Policies change, and honestly, it's unusual for someone your age to be handling cash like this. We have to be careful." The words landed like a stone in the girl's stomach. Unusual, as if kids her age, especially black kids, weren't trusted to walk into a bank and do something as normal as putting birthday money away. She glanced around. The man at the table had stopped writing. The woman on her phone had lowered it slightly, watching. She took a breath. "My mom is the account holder. Her name is on the slip. Can I just sign it or something?" Linda shook her head. "Without ID, I can't verify you're authorized. Even if you're her daughter, I need proof." "But I am her daughter," the girl said, frustration creeping into her voice now. "And this is her money I'm putting in her account." Linda leaned forward slightly. "Look, I'm just doing my job. If you can't provide ID or have your mom come in herself, there's not much I can do." The girl stood there, heart pounding. She wasn't angry, not yet. But she felt small, seen but not seen right. Like the teller had already decided who she was before she even opened her mouth. She stepped back from the counter, clutching the envelope again. Her hands were warm. She didn't cry. She'd learned long ago that tears in places like this only made people think you were dramatic or out of control. Instead, she pulled out her phone and dialed her mom. Her mom answered on the second ring. "Hey, sweetie, everything okay?" "I'm at the bank," the girl said, keeping her voice low. "They won't let me deposit Grandma's money. They're saying I need ID even though it's your account." There was a pause. Not a long one, but enough to tell the girl her mom was already connecting the dots. "What exactly did they say?" The girl repeated the conversation as calmly as she could. When she finished, her mom didn't yell, didn't curse, but her voice changed like steel wrapped in velvet. "Stay right there," she said. "I'm on my way." 15 minutes later, a sleek black sedan pulled up outside the bank. The girl watched from the window as her mom stepped out, wearing a tailored navy suit, heels clicking against the pavement, briefcase in one hand, phone in the other. She didn't look angry. She looked focused, like someone who'd walked into a room full of problems and already knew how to fix them. Inside, the atmosphere had shifted. Linda had moved on to helping another customer, but kept glancing toward the door. When the girl's mom walked in, every head turned. Not because she was loud, but because she carried herself like someone used to being heard. She walked straight to the counter. "I'm here regarding my daughter's deposit," she said, voice calm but firm. "Account number 4827. Linda recognized her instantly, not by name but by presence. Something in her posture stiffened. "Oh, ma'am, I didn't realize." "You didn't realize what?" her mom asked, not unkindly but with a sharp edge underneath. "That my daughter was telling the truth? That she's been authorized to make deposits into my account since she was 12? Or that treating her like a suspect is not only unprofessional, it's unacceptable?" The room went quiet. Even the background hum of the bank seemed to pause. Linda stammered, "I was just following protocol." "Then your protocol needs reviewing," her mom said. "Because no child should walk into a bank, wearing a school uniform, holding birthday money, and be made to feel like they're doing something wrong." She turned to her daughter and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You did everything right," she said softly. Then back to Linda. "I'd like to speak with your manager, now." The manager arrived within minutes, a man in a pressed shirt, sweating slightly at the collar. He introduced himself with a nervous smile, already reaching for an apology before he even knew the full story. But the girl's mom didn't want empty words. She wanted answers. Why was her daughter singled out? Had other kids been asked for ID? Was there a written policy about minors making deposits? And most importantly, was this treatment influenced by anything other than procedure? The manager fumbled through responses, promising to look into it, but his eyes kept darting away, like he was already calculating damage control. Meanwhile, the girl stood beside her mom, no longer feeling small. She felt seen, protected, and more than that, she felt the quiet power of someone refusing to let injustice slide, even when it came wrapped in policy and procedure. As they waited for the manager to pull up records, the girl looked around the bank again. The same space that had felt cold and suspicious just 20 minutes ago now felt different. Not because the lights changed or the chairs moved, but because her mom had walked in and reminded everyone that dignity isn't optional. It's basic, and sometimes all it takes is one person standing up calmly, clearly, without shouting, to shift the whole room. But this was only the beginning. Because what happened next wouldn't just change their afternoon, it would ripple far beyond those bank doors. The manager led them to a small office tucked behind the main counter. Beige walls, a potted plant that looked like it hadn't seen sunlight in weeks, and a desk cluttered with folders and coffee cups. He offered them seats, his smile tight at the edges like it was glued on. The girl sat quietly beside her mom, still holding the envelope with her birthday money. It felt heavier now, not because of the cash inside, but because of everything it had stirred up. Her mom didn't sit right away. She stood for a moment, scanning the room as if measuring the space between what was said and what was true. Then she sat back straight, hands folded calmly in her lap. "Let's be clear," she began, voice steady. "My daughter came in to do something simple, something responsible. She followed instructions. She brought the right paperwork. And instead of being helped, she was questioned like she was trying to pull a scam." The manager cleared his throat. "I understand how it might have seemed that way, ma'am, but Linda was just what?" Her mom interrupted gently but firmly. "Just assuming a young black girl walking in with birthday money must be up to something? Because I've been in this industry long enough to know that just following policy often hides something else." He shifted in his chair. "That's not fair. We treat everyone the same. Do you?" she asked, not with accusation but with genuine curiosity. "Because I've seen security footage from this branch. Last month, a white boy, maybe 15, came in with a stack of cash from his summer job. No ID, no questions. They even joked with him while he filled out the slip. My daughter gets interrogated for 80 cents a nun." The manager opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't deny it. Couldn't maybe. Outside, the afternoon light was softening, turning golden. Through the blinds, the girl could see people passing by, walking dogs, heading home from work, living ordinary lives. None of them knew what was happening behind these walls, but this moment mattered. Not just to her, but to every kid who'd ever been made to feel like they didn't belong in a place they had every right to be. Her mom leaned forward slightly. "I'm not here to cause a scene. I'm here because I want to understand. Is this how your team is trained? To treat young people, especially young people of color, with suspicion first, service second? The manager wiped his brow. We have bias training, he said quickly. Annual sessions. Role-playing scenarios. We take this seriously. Then why does it keep happening? Her mom asked. Not just here, everywhere. Kids get followed in stores, stopped in hallways, questioned in banks. And when parents speak up, they're told it's policy or a misunderstanding. But patterns aren't misunderstandings. They're systems. The girl listened, heart thumping. She'd heard her mom talk like this before, at dinner, on calls and speeches, but never like this, up close, defending her in real time. It made her feel seen in a way she couldn't quite put into words. After a long pause, the manager sighed. Look, maybe Linda overstepped. I'll talk to her. We'll review the interaction, and of course we'll process the deposit right away. No ID needed since you're here. Her mom nodded slowly. I appreciate that. But this isn't just about one deposit. It's about trust. My daughter will remember this. She'll remember how she was treated when she tried to do the right thing, and that sticks. He nodded, looking down at his desk. What would you like us to do? I'd like you to pull the logs, she said. Show me every deposit made by minors in the last 6 months. Let's see if the questions, the ID requests, the delays, they fall evenly, or if they cluster around certain faces. The manager hesitated. That's a lot of data. I know, her mom said, but fairness isn't convenient. It's necessary, he finally agreed, promising to compile the report within 48 hours. As they stood to leave, he added, and please accept our apologies. We value your family's business. Her mom gave a small, tight smile. I hope you value more than just our accounts. I hope you value our humanity. Back outside, the air felt lighter. The girl let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Her mom put an arm around her shoulders as they walked to the car. You okay? She asked softly. The girl nodded. Yeah, I didn't think it would be like that. I know, her mom said, but you handled it with grace. You stayed calm. You spoke clearly. That takes strength. They got in the car. For a few minutes, neither spoke. The city hummed around them. Buses rolling by, kids laughing at a nearby park. The distant chime of an ice cream truck. Normal life continuing. Then the girl asked, Do you think they'll actually change anything? Her mom thought for a moment before answering. Some people will brush this off as one bad apple. But real change starts when good people refuse to accept bad patterns. I'm not expecting them to fix everything overnight, but I am expecting them to look honestly at what happened and why. At home over dinner, they talked more. Not just about the bank, but about how often kids, especially kids who look like her, are expected to prove they belong. In libraries, in stores, in schools, even in spaces that are supposed to be neutral, like banks. Her mom shared stories from her own childhood, times she'd been followed in department stores, or told she didn't seem smart enough for advanced classes. It never really goes away, she admitted. But you learn to carry yourself with quiet confidence, and when you see it happening to someone else, you speak up. The next morning, the girl went to school like usual. But something had shifted inside her. She paid attention to how teachers called on students, how security guards watched certain hallways more closely, how some kids were always assumed to be trouble before they even spoke. She didn't say anything, not yet, but she was watching, learning. Meanwhile, her mom made a call, not to the media, not to lawyers, but to a colleague who worked in community banking reform. She described what happened not for drama, but for data. I want to know if this is isolated, she explained, or part of a larger trend. By afternoon, an email came back. A recent study showed that Black and Latino minors were 3 times more likely to be asked for ID during routine banking transactions than their white peers, even when using a parent's account. The numbers didn't lie. That evening, her mom sat at the kitchen table with a notebook, jotting down ideas. Not for revenge, for repair. She drafted a proposal, a partnership between local banks and youth financial literacy programs, with built-in bias audits and customer experience reviews led by diverse community members. She didn't want to shame the branch. She wanted to transform it, and the girl? She started writing in her journal. Not just about what happened, but about how it made her feel, and what she wished had been different. She imagined a bank where every kid, no matter their skin color or age, was greeted with a smile and a "How can I help you today?" Instead of suspicion. She didn't know it yet, but those quiet reflections would grow into something bigger. A school project, a club, maybe even a movement. But for now it was enough to know she wasn't crazy. She wasn't too sensitive. What happened was real, and her mom believed her. That night before bed, she placed the birthday envelope on her dresser, still unopened. She'd deposit it soon. But this time she'd do it with her mom beside her. Not because she needed protection, but because she wanted to show them both. We belong here. And no policy, no assumption, no sideways glance would ever take that away. 2 days passed. The deposit still hadn't been made. Not because they'd forgotten, but because her mom wanted to do it right. Not in a rush, not under pressure, but on their terms. So on Thursday afternoon, they returned to the same branch. Same time. Same sunlight slanting through the glass doors. This time the girl walked in with her mom beside her, not behind or ahead, right there, shoulder to shoulder. The air inside felt different. Quieter. Tenser. Like the whole place had been holding its breath since their last visit. The manager spotted them the moment they stepped inside. He was at the front desk, straightening papers that didn't need straightening. His eyes widened slightly, then he quickly smoothed his expression into something meant to look professional. But it wavered at the edges. "Good afternoon," he said, stepping forward with a practiced smile. "We've been expecting you." Her mom nodded. "We're here to complete my daughter's deposit, and to follow up on our conversation." "Of course," he said, glancing toward the teller counter. Linda wasn't there. In her place was a younger woman with kind eyes and a name tag that read Tina. She gave them a warm, if slightly nervous, smile. The manager led them not to the back office this time, but to a small seating area near the window. 2 armchairs and a low table with brochures about savings accounts and home loans. It felt less like an interrogation room and more like a conversation space. Progress, maybe. He handed her mom a printed report. "We pulled all minor-related deposits from the past 6 months," he said, voice lower now, more serious. "You were right to ask." Her mom flipped through the pages slowly. The numbers didn't shout, but they whispered loud enough. Out of 28 deposits made by teens under 16, 22 had been by white kids, only 6 by black or brown teens. And every single one of those 6 had been asked for ID. Not one white teen had been questioned about the source of their money. One had even deposited $300 in cash from a lawn mowing business. No receipt, no ID, no problem. She closed the folder. "So it wasn't just policy," she said quietly. "It was pattern," the manager swallowed. "I can't explain it," he admitted. "But I won't excuse it either." That honesty seemed to shift something in the room. The girl watched her mom's face soften, not in forgiveness but in recognition. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying to see. "Good," her mom said, "because seeing is the first step." Then Tina approached with a deposit slip already filled out. Account number 4827, amount $87, today's date. "Whenever you're ready," she said gently to the girl. The girl took the pen. Her hand didn't shake this time. She signed her name neatly, just like her mom had taught her. Then she handed over the envelope. Tina counted the money slowly, respectfully, and slid the receipt across the counter. "All set," she said with a real smile this time. "Your balance has been updated. It should have been a small moment. Just a routine transaction. But it felt like something bigger. Like a door that had been slammed shut was now creaking open again." As they turned to leave, the manager cleared his throat. "Before you go, I spoke with regional leadership this morning. They've agreed to bring in an outside trainer for a full-day session on implicit bias and youth customer service, starting next month." Her mom paused. "That's a start. And," he added quickly, "we'd like your input. If you're willing. Not as a critic, but as a partner. You understand both banking and what it means to raise a child in this world. We could use that perspective." For the first time, her mom smiled. Genuine, not polite. "I'll consider it." Outside, the late afternoon sun warmed the sidewalk. The girl tucked the receipt into her pocket like a badge. She didn't say much as they walked to the car, but her steps were lighter. "You proud of yourself?" her mom asked as they buckled in. "I'm proud of us," the girl said. Her mom laughed softly. "Fair enough." Back home, her mom didn't post about it on social media. Didn't call the news. She believed real change happened in rooms where people listened, not just performed. But she did send a short, thoughtful email to the bank's regional director, thanking them for taking the first step and offering to help design the training curriculum. She knew it wouldn't fix everything overnight. Bias didn't vanish because someone attended a workshop, but seeds had been planted, and sometimes that's enough to start a forest. That weekend, the girl went with her mom to a community center where she volunteered. While her mom met with a group of local business owners, the girl sat in the corner reading, but her mind kept drifting back to the bank. The way Linda had looked at her, the way the manager had fumbled his words, the quiet courage it took for Tina to treat her like a normal customer. She started wondering, what if kids like her could learn about money before they walked into a bank? What if they knew their rights, their options, and how to speak up if something felt wrong? At dinner that night, she asked, "What if we taught other kids how to handle stuff like this?" Her mom looked up from her plate. Like what? Like, what to do if someone treats you unfairly at a bank or a store? How to stay calm? How to ask for a manager? How to know it's not your fault? Her mom's eyes lit up. That's a really good idea. Maybe we could start a club at school, the girl said, warming to the thought. Not just about money, but about respect and knowing your worth. Her mom reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You're on to something. The next week, the girl drafted a one-page flyer during study hall. Simple words: know your rights, handle money with confidence, stand tall. She showed it to her social studies teacher, who loved it. By Friday, they had approval to launch a student group called Future Forward. Meanwhile, the bank's regional office reached back out. They wanted her mom to co-lead the training session. She agreed, but only if they included real stories, not just theory, and only if frontline staff had a chance to ask hard questions without fear. The day of the training, her mom didn't lecture. She shared. She talked about her daughter's experience, not to shame but to humanize. She played a short anonymized role-play. A teen depositing birthday money met with suspicion. Then she asked the room, "What would you do differently?" Hands went up. Voices rose, not defensive but curious. One teller admitted, "I never thought about how asking for ID might feel like distrust." Another said, "I've seen kids treated differently, but I didn't know how to speak up." That honesty opened a door no policy manual ever could. And back at school, the girl stood in front of 10 classmates in a classroom after the final bell, holding a stack of handouts on basic banking terms and customer rights. Her voice was steady. Her eyes were bright. "We're not just learning how to save money," she told them. "We're learning how to be seen." No one knew it yet, but this small group would grow. Parents would ask to join. Local banks would offer guest workshops. And years later, some of those students would become tellers, managers, even executives, carrying that lesson with them. Service isn't just about transactions. It's about trust. But on that Thursday afternoon, as mother and daughter walked out of the bank with a simple receipt and a quiet understanding, none of that was visible yet. What mattered was this: a wrong had been named, a pattern had been interrupted, and a young girl had learned that her voice, calm, clear, and true, could move mountains, not with anger, not with noise, but with the steady, unshakable belief that she belonged everywhere. A few weeks after the deposit was finally made, something unexpected happened. Not in the bank, but in the community. Word started to spread, not through headlines or viral videos, but the old-fashioned way. Parents talking at soccer practice, teachers mentioning it in staff meetings, neighbors chatting over fences. A quiet ripple, but a real one. People weren't just talking about what happened, they were asking questions. Would my kid be treated like that? Does our local branch do the same thing? What should we teach our children before they walk into a bank alone? That curiosity turned into action. A local parents group reached out to the girl's mom, not for drama, but for guidance. They wanted to host a workshop, Teens, Money, and Respect. She agreed, on one condition. Her daughter would co-lead it. At first, the girl was nervous, standing in front of adults, talking about something so personal. But her mom reminded her, "You lived it. That gives you a voice no expert can fake." The night of the workshop, the community center was full. Not packed, but present. About 30 people, mostly parents, a few teens, even a couple of local bank employees who came on their own time. No cameras, no agenda. Just real people wanting to understand. The girl stood at the front, hands clasped, heart racing. She didn't read from notes. She just told her story, simply, honestly. how she'd felt proud to handle her own money, how confused she'd been when the teller questioned her, how small she'd felt in that moment, and how her mom showing up didn't just fix the deposit, it restored her dignity. When she finished, the room was quiet for a beat. Then someone clapped. Then everyone did, not out of pity but respect. Afterward, people came up one by one. A father said, "My son's 12. I never thought he might be treated differently just for walking in with cash." A grandmother whispered, "I remember being followed in stores when I was young. I didn't want my grandkids to go through that, but I didn't know how to protect them." The girl listened, answered gently, and handed out a one-page guide she'd made. What to do if you're treated unfairly in a business. It wasn't legal advice, just practical steps. Stay calm, ask for a manager, write down names and times, tell a trusted adult, simple, human, real. Meanwhile, the bank's regional office followed through. They didn't just hold one training, they made it ongoing. Every new hire now went through a session that included real scenarios, not just rule books, and they added a feedback system. After any interaction, customers could rate not just speed or accuracy, but whether they felt respected. The manager from the original branch became an unlikely advocate. He started walking the floor more, not to police his staff, but to listen. He noticed things he'd missed before, the way some customers got quick service while others waited longer without explanation. The tone shifts when certain people approach the counter. He brought those observations to leadership. And slowly, quietly, things began to change. But the real test came a month later. A 15-year-old boy, light-skinned, freckled, wearing a baseball cap, walked into the same branch with $120 from his weekend job at a car wash. He didn't have ID. He handed over the cash and a deposit slip for his mom's account. Tina, now the senior teller, smiled. "Hey there, let me just verify the account number with you." She asked one clear question, processed the deposit in under 2 minutes, and handed him a receipt with a "Have a great day." No suspicion. No extra steps. Just service. Later that week, a black girl, about the same age as the first, came in with birthday money. Same uniform. Same envelope. Tina greeted her the same way. Same tone, same speed, same respect. No one made a big deal of it. That was the point. It was just normal. Back at school, the Future Forward Club was growing. They'd moved from one classroom to 2. They invited a local credit union rep to explain how savings accounts work. They practiced role-playing. What if someone says you look too young to be here? What if they ask where your money came from? The kids weren't being taught to be defensive, they were being taught to be confident. The girl who started it all found herself answering questions not just from classmates but from younger students too. A 6th grader once asked, "What if I'm scared to speak up?" She thought for a moment and said, "You don't have to be loud, just clear, and always tell someone you trust." Her mom watched all this with quiet pride. She hadn't set out to start a movement. She just wanted her daughter to be treated fairly. But sometimes fairness spreads like sunlight. Once you open the blinds, it fills the whole room. Then came the invitation. The regional bank leadership asked her mom to join an advisory council, a small group of community members, educators and financial professionals tasked with reviewing customer experience policies across all branches in the area. She accepted, but again, with conditions. The council had to include youth voices, not just as tokens, but as equal partners. So the girl joined too, sitting at a long table with executives twice her age, sharing what it felt like to be on the other side of the counter. At first, some adults spoke over her or used jargon she didn't understand, but she held her ground. "Can you say that in plain words?" she'd ask. Or, "That sounds good on paper, but how does it feel in real life?" Those questions changed the tone of the meetings. Policies started including phrases like "assume good intent" and "prioritize dignity over procedure." One branch even redesigned its lobby to feel more welcoming, softer lighting, lower counters for kids, clear signage in multiple languages. None of it erased every problem. Bias doesn't vanish overnight. But the culture was shifting, from suspicion to service, from rules to relationships, and through it all the girl kept learning. She opened her own savings account, started tracking her spending in a notebook, even gave a short talk at a city youth summit about money and respect. She wasn't an activist in the loud sense. She was something quieter, and maybe more powerful, a witness who chose to speak, and a student who chose to lead. Her mom, meanwhile, began mentoring other professionals, especially women of color in finance, on how to navigate spaces that weren't built for them. She shared the story not as a wound, but as a lesson. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is show up. For your child, for your community, for what's right. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching fireflies blink in the dusk, the girl asked, "Do you think we made a difference?" Her mom smiled. "Not we, you did. I just stood beside you." The girl shook her head. "But you taught me that standing up doesn't mean yelling. It means showing up with truth." Her mom reached over and squeezed her hand. "Then I guess we both learned something." And in that quiet moment, under a sky just starting to fill with stars, it was clear. Real change doesn't always come with sirens or headlines. Sometimes it starts with a girl walking into a bank with birthday money and a mother who refuses to let the world tell her child she doesn't belong. A year later, the same bank branch looked different, not in its layout but in its rhythm. The air felt lighter, like a room after a long-needed conversation. Customers were greeted by name. Teens walked in alone and left with receipts and smiles. Even the potted plant in the manager's office had been replaced with a real one that actually got watered. But the biggest change wasn't inside the bank. It was outside, in the community. The Future Forward Club had grown into a citywide youth initiative. What started as a handful of students meeting after school was now a network of teens teaching financial basics at libraries, community centers, and even summer camps. They didn't just talk about savings accounts or budgeting. They talked about respect, boundaries, and knowing your rights in everyday spaces. Their motto, printed on t-shirts and handouts, was simple: your money, your dignity. The girl who'd once stood nervously at the counter now stood confidently in front of crowds, not as a victim, but as a guide. She'd learned that sharing your story isn't about blame. It's about building bridges so others don't have to cross the same rough ground alone. Her mom, meanwhile, had helped shape a new regional standard for customer service in banking, one that didn't just check boxes for compliance, but measured how people felt during their visit. Surveys now included questions like, "Did you feel respected?" and "Would you bring your child here?" The results were shared with staff monthly, not as criticism, but as a mirror. And the most surprising shift? The teller who'd questioned the girl that day, Linda, hadn't quit or been fired. Instead, she'd asked to sit in on one of the bias training sessions. Not once, but 3 times. She later told the manager quietly, "I didn't realize I was doing that, but I see it now." She started mentoring new hires not just on procedures, but on presence, how a tone, a glance, or a pause can say more than words. No one made her do it. She chose to grow, and that in its own quiet way was part of the healing. Back at school, the Girls Club launched a bank walk program, where students in pairs visited local financial institutions to observe how they were treated. They didn't go to catch people slipping up. They went to learn, to compare, and to give honest feedback. Some branches welcomed them with open arms. Others stumbled but were grateful for the insight. One local credit union even offered paid summer internships to club members, not just filing papers but helping design youth-friendly account options and customer service scripts. For the first time, teens weren't just customers, they were co-creators. At home, life had settled into a new normal. The birthday money had long been deposited, but the lesson it carried stayed fresh. The girl now managed her own small budget, allowance, earnings from tutoring younger kids, even a tiny investment account her mom helped her open. She tracked every dollar, not out of fear, but out of pride. Money wasn't just numbers, it was power, responsibility, and freedom. Her mom noticed something else too. Her daughter walked into rooms differently now. Shoulders back, voice steady. Not because she'd never faced doubt again, but because she knew how to meet it without losing herself. One spring afternoon, they got an unexpected email. A national nonprofit focused on economic equity had heard about their story, not from news reports, but from a teacher who'd attended the community workshop. They wanted to feature the Future Forward model in a toolkit for schools across the country. The girl read the message twice. "Do we say yes?" she asked. Her mom smiled. "Only if you're comfortable." This was never about fame. It was about fairness. "I'm okay with it," the girl said, "as long as we keep it real. No exaggerations, Just what happened and what's possible, so they agreed. But they insisted the toolkit include voices from the bank staff too, and the students and the parents. Because real change isn't a solo act, it's a chorus. Months later, at a quiet education conference in another city, the girl stood on stage, not under bright lights, but in a sunlit room full of teachers and youth workers. She didn't wear a suit, just jeans, sneakers, and a future-forward t-shirt. She told her story in 10 minutes, then opened the floor for questions. A woman in the back raised her hand. "What's the one thing adults get wrong when trying to help kids like you?" The girl thought for a moment. "They assume we need saving. But most of the time we just need space to speak, to try, to be believed. My mom didn't fight for me that day. She stood with me. There's a big difference." The room fell silent, then filled with slow, thoughtful nods. Afterward, a group of teens from another state surrounded her. "We want to start this in our town," one said. "Can you help us?" She handed them a flash drive with all their materials. Lesson plans, role plays, even sample letters to send to local banks. "Start small," she told them. "And don't wait for permission to do what's right." On the flight home, she looked out the window at the clouds below and thought about how far they'd come. Not just her and her mom, but the whole community. The bank hadn't become perfect. The world hadn't changed overnight. But something important had shifted. People were paying attention. And when people pay attention, things begin to bend toward fairness. Back home, she found a letter in the mailbox. It was from the original branch manager, handwritten on bank letterhead. Inside, he thanked her, not for exposing them, but for giving them a chance to do better. He included a photo, the staff all wearing Future Forward pins during customer service week. She taped it to her bedroom wall, next to her savings tracker and a quote she'd written herself. "Dignity isn't given. It's claimed and protected." Years later, when she graduated high school, she chose to study public policy, not because she wanted to run for office, but because she believed systems should serve people, not the other way around. Her senior speech wasn't about grades or dreams. It was about the day she walked into a bank with $87 and walked out with a mission. And her mom, she still worked in finance, but now she spent part of her time advising companies on inclusive customer experience. Not as a consultant, but as a parent who'd seen how small moments shape big lives. They never sought revenge. They never demanded punishment. They simply asked, "Can we do better?" And when the answer came, slow, stumbling, but sincere, they helped build the path forward. Because in the end, the story wasn't really about a deposit. It was about a daughter learning her worth, a mother choosing to show up, a community deciding that fairness isn't optional, and a quiet truth that echoes louder than any headline. When you treat a child with respect, you don't just honor them, you change the world, one interaction at a time.